Welcome to Foothold America's U.S. Expansion Mini-Pod, 3 Questions, 1 Voice. I'm your host, Joanne Farquharson, President and CEO of Foothold America. Today, I'm exceedingly excited to welcome an entrepreneur's entrepreneur, Dorit Roest. Over the past 15 years, Dorit founded and co-founded 3 accelerator and ecosystem companies to empower entrepreneurial growth, plus several other companies built from ideas she's passionate about. Dorit has a magic energy about her, and always the dedicated entrepreneur, she agreed to share her expertise with us today at 38 weeks pregnant, fully ready to focus on maternity leave. Alrighty, let's get started with our 3 questions, hearing one voice, Ms. Dorit Roest. Since you've been doing this and empowering companies to grow for so many years, how would you describe the difference in the ScaleNL experience where you were helping them specifically go to the U.S.? What was different about that, or what can founders learn about growth in general versus growth into the U.S.?
Yeah, good question. The first thing that pops up for me is the level, the ambition. The top entrepreneurs of the Netherlands that made it in the Netherlands, they feel I am ready to take that next step to expand to the US, it's a whole different ballgame because at my first company, the Influencers Movement, we helped 4,000 influencers create a business out of their passion with online marketplace, but those were mostly solopreneurs, people by themselves, and they have the same genes, they have the same DNA, they want to create something, but the startup industry, the founders of the tech startup industry, that's a whole different species, right, Joanne? Yeah. I mean, they know that they have to sacrifice so much, and they have sacrificed so much already. So I feel like that personal ambition and drive of the founders is one very specific example of what distinguishes the different target audiences. Yeah, and then there are so many differences between the Netherlands and the US. I don't even know where to start. But I feel like your question is targeted more towards the people that I work with, right? The entrepreneurs.
Yes, because you are an entrepreneur. And this actually, I'll sort of tiptoe into this. You were working in collaboration with the Dutch government, which is vastly, whenever you're working with a bureaucratic system compared to a commercial system, they have obvious differences maybe in pace and focus, but that was the partnership that you had that helped to bring those companies to the Netherlands. So how did that impact? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was, for 7 years before that, I was the captain on my own ship. I was the founder myself. And suddenly I got this opportunity. I have to say, I said no twice before I said yes, because I was like, no, I'm not able to perform in this structure and have a board to report to. And I was very hesitant if I was able to even have the motivation and the ambition that I had with my own company if I would build a company for the Dutch government. Right. But the Dutch consulate in San Francisco has a very entrepreneurial spirit, and they had a lot of trust in me and Michael. And we had the assignment to build this organization, and that made all the difference, luckily.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to go back to what you said about the scale when it came to helping solopreneurs versus tech entrepreneurs and what they have to give up. There's maybe some listeners there that are thinking, well, I've grown my business, and yes, of course, I work very hard. I wonder what kind of sacrifices is she talking about that I might have to make? Are there any key ones that stick out that founders should know when they're taking that leap to the U.S.?
Yeah, Well, there's a whole bunch of sacrifices even before you get to that stage of product market fit in the Netherlands or in any country, before you can take that leap. And that is just putting so much time, money, energy in a company because you believe in it. Mm-hmm. You feel like you want to build it and you want to grow it and scale it, but there's no guarantees. So that is the first sacrifice, and we see that a lot of the companies that we worked with were already working on a company for 3, 5, sometimes even 10 years before they take that step, and they were still not there that they could buy a house for themselves instead of all their employees already taking a mortgage on. So yeah, there's a lot of sacrifices in that first stage before you even get to think about that US expansion plan. But then if you want to move to the US, and maybe I can highlight this with an example. With ScaleNL, we built a 10-week program to prep the best Dutch entrepreneurs to take that leap to the US and to offer them a soft landing over there. But then in the last week, we would take them to the US, and then we would... In Dutch, we say we throw them before the lions. We feed them to the lions. We every opportunity we find, we give them a stage, and they can pitch their companies to the best entrepreneurs, to the best investors, to the whole ecosystem. And at one point, we were pitching in Los Angeles. A lot of highly placed diplomatic people and everything. And one founder, he lost his lines during the pitch. Mm-hmm. And suddenly it all clicked for him like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. I don't want to make all these sacrifices. This is not the life that I want for me and my family. Mm-hmm. And so the company goals were not aligned with his personal goals. And you get swept away. You get, you someone says like, oh, your company is successful. The next step is the US, and then you feel like
unicorn.
Yes, yeah, that's the path I need to take. Mm-hmm. But the longer I was working with these companies, the more I wanted to say to them. And maybe this is not the best message to your target audience, but the more I wanted,
it is. I wanted
to say, like, it's okay to not want this. This is not for everyone, and it's definitely not something I envy because if you are expanding to the US and if you are looking for funding in the US, then yes, it is expected of you to also, as a founder, be present frequently by visiting, but sometimes even also relocating. And mm-hmm. you have to think about what that means to you. And if you want that, and if your ambition and drive goes that far, and if you still have enough energy left in your battery.
That leads me to question number 2, which is about the accelerator versus the organic growth. So you've been instrumental in developing an accelerator program, a formal accelerator program, but you've also built from the ground up, every step not completely on your own. I know you'll use your network and you'll talk with other people, but how would you describe the accelerator experience versus build it yourself, maybe go get your own funding, things mm-hmm. like that, for entrepreneurs going to the US? And when I ask that question, I also think about what you have just said. So you were taking the best of the best. So I imagine there's a different level of pressure. And what about those companies that go, you know what, I'm not going to be Google, but I am going to be amazing, and I do want to expand. What do you think about the methods, not so much the pathway, but accelerator, do it yourself, that kind of thing?
Yeah, or tailor-made, like, mm-hmm. For instance, what you guys do as well. I think you have to take into consideration how much time you have and how much you value and you appreciate the networking effect. So networking and time, because time for us with ScaleNL, we know this target audience so well, and I've been a founder myself. I know how busy you are, and I also I've gone through a couple of programs myself, and they are never really tailor-made. So half of all the content is not really relevant to you right now. And that can feel like a waste of time for a lot of founders.
Wow, great point.
Yeah.
Really great point.
But for ScaleNL, we knew that these founders were in a like pre-series A, so their time was their most valuable asset. So what we did is we really tailor-made a lot of the components in the accelerator program, so it would really fit their needs. So it would be one-on-one coaching instead of all plenary sessions, those kind of things.
Okay.
Also timing. So how much time do you have, but also how much are you in a hurry to go to the US? If you are in a hurry, then a 10-week program, and then after 10 weeks you are there in the US and you have the opportunity to really meet the whole ecosystem. That's quite time efficient. So if you're in a hurry, let's go. If it's too early, you won't get out of the program what you want.
Right. Very good point. So it sounds like you need to look at the specifics of the accelerator, not just think, okay, I'm a Dutch company, ScaleNL, they know what they're doing. They're going to help me get there, but really to evaluate. So the founder needs to evaluate, what is it I want? What does this thing offer? And I think your being tailor-made is really important. We find that with the work we do with the C-suite, where they go, you know what? Webinars and resources on your website are not nearly as good as being able to pick up the phone and talk one-on-one. So finding a place where people say, hey, I'm helping you and your company and your ideas, not, the companies from this country to this country. It's a very good point.
And it's also that human connection that plays a big role in this decision as well, because one, if you are surrounded with like-minded founders that are also taking this leap, then that can really boost your motivation. It can make you feel less lonely. It can help you increase the fun level, because let's be honest, it's also nice that when we were in San Francisco, then in the evening we would go out to dinner and we get to know each other, and that's also really enriching. But also the networking effect, because we've done the strategy sprint together, but I also have a couple of other sprints. So I once did a networking sprint with one of the cohorts, and during a networking sprint, everyone gets the time to prepare their pitch, to figure out what is my ask in this network. And then everyone gets the opportunity to offer support to that ask. So one time, one guy was like, okay, we're going to the US. We were with 10 founders that were going to the US. My visit to the US would be successful if I got an appointment at NASA at this and this department. And then, because you have that networking effect, and I facilitated this networking sprint, everyone got the opportunity to write down whether they could help. And it was literally one guy that had the exact contact for this other guy. So before we even went to the US, he already got that appointment and exceeded all expectations. And not only the fact that he got what he wanted, but also that feeling of paying it forward within that community of founders is amazing. So
it is. And you've hit on a couple of points, I think, that are really important. So isolation, even if you are involved in your tech ecosystem as a tech founder, for example, heavy is the head that wears the crown. You have that, you do feel isolated. And I think also, I don't know if this is true culturally in the Netherlands. I think I would say that it's a generalization in the culture of the US that you're thought to need to do things on your own, that's a show of strength, and to not ask for help, which can be counterproductive when it comes to networking. So giving people the permission to say, you know what, I need help here. I need this introduction, or I need to explain this, or I need, I've got this thing in my company that's not working well. How do I do that? And it's so important, and yet I think it's something where people shy away from it. Do you find that to be true, or?
Yeah, definitely. We take a lot of time to get to know each other before we actually take that step of asking for a favor, right? And sometimes it can really help to be in a community like a cohort or at a networking event where there's a structure already to be able to dive in immediately. And that's maybe very Dutch because we are very direct. So it's probably less.
That's a good mix for the US, for sure. Question number 3 is about some experiences you've witnessed, and you did give us one where a person came to a rather abrupt awareness that what they were doing wasn't aligned for them personally. So I want to ask you 2 things. I would love to hear what you consider one of the greatest successes in ScaleNL for a founder going to the US. But I also want to ask you to tell us about Strategy Sprint. And I know we weren't intending for this to be about Strategy Sprint, but I feel so strongly about it after having gone through it. And you shared your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal. And I think it's absolutely doable to have Strategy Sprint be something that every entrepreneur does, or every business every year, because I just found it so valuable. So let's start with a real high point, a positive you saw for a scaling founder coming through ScaleNL, and then a little bit more, if you would, about the evolution of Strategy Sprint.
The first question that I always ask is, are you on track?
Yes.
And that's a magical question. So for everyone that's listening, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are an ecosystem player, just think about your answer. Are you on track? For a second. And then probably other questions come to mind, like, where am I going to? Or how the hell am I going to get back on track?
Yes.
But there's so much information in already your personal response to this question.
Yes.
So just take a moment to write that down. That's my advice, my 2 cents to everyone listening. And if you don't know where you're headed towards, start making some time to think about what is your destination? What is your end goal? What does success look like for you, and how will you get there? Right. And maybe the US is going to take you there. Maybe you first need a good conversation with a friend to figure this out. Maybe you need a strategy sprint. Maybe you need Joanne's advice. That doesn't even matter. But the first step is acknowledging whether you are on track, yes or no, and what you need to do to get on track.
Right. And I imagine for your strategy sprint clients, if the answer is no, then there's work to do. If the answer is yes, then there's still work to do. And maybe you're not as on track as you think, because the questions that you ask are so thought-provoking that you are changed as a result of the experience, whether you start on track or not.
I feel like the success stories are the founders truly intrinsically motivated for their mission of their companies. Those are the ones that also truly get the satisfaction of these next steps in the US, whether it's fundraising, whether it's opening their first office there, hiring the first people, or relocating in total. Like that doesn't even matter. But the ones that truly feel like this is my mission to scale this company, those are the ones that, and we talked about this as well, that you see in their eyes like, wow, there's a whole world of opportunities and possibilities opening up to me. And then the US is amazing. I mean, look at how big the market is. Look at how many opportunities there are. Look at how much bigger advisors and investors and the whole ecosystem can think. So there's a whole world opening up for them. And we've had founders joining our program, and within 3 months already having a merger or an acquisition. The most important thing is that founders check in with themselves, check in with their teams, check in with their company culture, whether they are excited, whether they feel the butterflies, whether they feel like, yes, this is opening up a world of possibilities to us. And if they are, let's go. And then you... ScaleNL, the whole ecosystem can move mountains for you. Right. But it starts with the founders.
So let's talk about some of the things that you learned along the way, because even though you're helping entrepreneurs, you are an entrepreneur. So if you can tell us a little bit about Strategy Sprint and how that evolved, and if you would share some successes, but also some things you learned along the way when they didn't work out, I think that would be great.
Yeah, well, I love to, because Strategy Sprint Company is the most fun company I've founded so far, even though ScaleNL was already such a high. So Strategy Sprint Company actually already exists for 10 years, but I didn't have a name for it yet. I did a design sprint 10 years ago for my first company, and I was like, wow, working with Post-its and timers and a proven recipe, an order of exercises that gets you into the right mindset to finally have an overview, to finally really being able to take decisions on your company. I thought it was mind-blowing, but a design sprint is focused on a tech product, and it takes 5 days. So I immediately started working on a recipe for a 1-day strategy session for founders. So I actually already started with my first strategy sprint 10 years ago. And in between companies, and founders that are listening might recognize this, after working on a company for several years, before you dive into a new company, you need some buffer time, right? You need some time to see like what gets my juices going. What do I want to do next? And one way of doing that, while also being able to make some money in the meantime, was by offering strategy sprints to other entrepreneurs. So between the influencers movement and ScaleNL, and between ScaleNL and Strategy Sprint Company, I already did this. And this recipe has evolved into the recipe for the strategy session in 1 day. We've done one.
It was intense, but so amazing. So amazing.
How would you describe it, Joanne?
Well, without giving it away, one of the things you asked me early on was what I wanted, and I said clarity. That was my word choice, and I felt like I got clarity by the end of the day. And many of the exercises, because of the quick nature of them, they really don't give you time to kind of go, well, this, or I need to think more. It's just pulling it straight out of you. And that was very liberating. And I did feel like afterwards, as you said earlier, that the answers are within, and I just needed someone like you to pull those out. But it was absolutely amazing, exhausting, but in such a good way. So I'm wondering if you are willing, though, to tell us about a mistake or a misstep that you made along the way with Strategy Sprint or another company, where that would be valuable to our listeners who, it can be specific to the US, but what are some things just to kind of humanize this a little bit and let everyone know we all make some missteps?
I always say, and that's also one of my missions, is to have the strategy sprint being sort of a Trojan horse, and with this Trojan horse, we come into companies and we actually bring two things. One, we open up a personal aspect of being an entrepreneur, and we offer even the most rational founders, we offer them a moment to reflect on whether their heart is in their company, whether their personal goals are aligned with the company, etc. That's one thing. But the Trojan horse is also about bringing that startup mindset to companies outside of the startup bubble, because I feel that a lot of startups, what they do very well is they experiment, they dare to experiment, they dare to fail. They are always willing to innovate and try new things. They are always focused on expansion and scaling and building and making it more efficient or more effective. And I feel that mindset can be so welcome for companies outside of this bubble. So I always try, and there's also one exercise even in the strategy sprint where you take these ideas that you have gathered throughout the day, and then you think of, okay, how can I make this a feasible experiment? What if I need to do it next week? Or what if I need to do it without any budget? So I know this, and I teach this, and it's in my methodology, everything. But then I had this idea, and I was like, I know this is a good idea. And I went big. I called it the 2-day track. It was a 2-day program with multiple founders, and it was a mix between the strategy sprint and a cohort and community. And I was like, this is it. And I even got a business partner on board for specifically the 2-day track. No one was buying it. No one was buying it. And okay, I didn't go all the way. I almost booked already like a theater and everything, but I did not do that. But even though I know how important it is to first validate your assumptions, I still didn't do it.
Yeah, you wanted to dive for it. Like, in my heart, I know, so I'm going to ignore some of these other pieces of information.
Yes, and I was also just very excited about it. I'm really feeling like, oh, I want to do this, even though I also wanted to do it for myself. But then, yeah, what was the effect? I was distracted from the things that were going very well in my company.
Yeah, no, I get that so much. And thank you for sharing that too, because again, we like to think we are thoughtful about our decisions and we're making good decisions. And you definitely have to backtrack on some of them. Not all of them are good. And it could be just timing. So maybe after your maternity leave, you may come back and you go, the world is ready for my brilliant ideas. And it's time now. But thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us for this empowering episode featuring Dorit Roest, founder of Strategy Sprint Agency and Strategy Sprint Academy. And thank you, Dorit, for sharing your expertise, guiding entrepreneurs to remember their passions, especially when expanding to a huge market like the United States. If you enjoyed today's conversation, subscribe to U.S. Expansion Minipod on your favorite platform. Published on the first and third Wednesdays of every month, you'll find engaging U.S. expansion discussions with industry leaders and innovators. Don't forget to share this episode with your network. In the comments, you can find a link to Dorit's LinkedIn profile and Strategy Sprint Agency for more information about her and her work. This has been Joanne Farquharson, President and CEO of Foothold America, and that wraps up our 3 questions for today. Until next time, keep expanding your horizons.